faces, smiling faces all the time. There you go.
Try to smile.
I can't believe it. Hey, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you. Let's talk about economic boycotts. That's right, Blackout Friday. Did you participate? February 28th. What? It's the resistance, everybody. And it came from an unlikely source. Many people thought it came from a black person. No, it did not. And while many black people figured very prominently in this, it was not for black people only. Indeed, this was about tapping into America's anger and anxiety about this moment. So, did you participate? Did you shop at one of the big box stores? Did you withdraw your dollars for just a day? It was promoted on social media and it was underway on Friday. And oh, Solomon, you said you did not participate? All right, everybody, I want to know if you did. Please reach out to me here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and on BSKY. That's right, Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social or the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page and on X at Santita J. I want to know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts, everybody? Um, and here I am, Solomon. I'm right here. You're ready for another excellent show. You're so sweet, and sending you so much love. And why didn't you participate, Solomon? I'd like to know. And if you did participate, I'd like to know as well. And Solomon, you said you spent money on Friday. You're not anxious or angry. You're happy. I hear you. Bernadette, you did participate. I want to know what your thoughts are. I cannot wait till we get these phones working around here because I want to hear your voices. But since you have to write it up, I want you to let me know what your thoughts. Robert, you participated, so did I. Um, and is 24 hours enough? Think about it. The Montgomery bus boycott ran for a year. The expectation was that it would last 2 weeks. Dr. King, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, Reverend Dr. David Abernathy, and the Montgomery Improvement Association, the precursors to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They all said, well, this might last a couple of weeks. The black community took that up and they did not look back. And it broke the back of the bus company, which was based in Chicago. Yeah. And then you have the Supreme Court decision. I can't help but believe Attorney Terry O'Neill and Attorney Linda Bernard that the economics helped to sway that decision because those people were determined not to ride the bus, certainly not under the conditions of Jim Crow. They just weren't going to do it, Theo Hardiman. So, I mean, violence interrupters. You've done a fair amount of protesting in your life. You almost became governor on a protest vote, 30% of the vote in Illinois. So here we go. Protests do matter. So everybody, I want you to reach out and I want you to like and share, like and share. Robert participated. Solomon did not participate. I want to know why, everybody. Um, why did you participate? Why didn't you participate? And do you think 24 hours is enough? They're planning to do more economic boycotts and they're pushing back against companies that have decided to not not have DEI as policy. So you tell me what your thoughts are. That's right. Follow Bernadette's advice. Like and share, like and share, like and share. But I want to know what your thoughts are. Solomon, you said boycott the Christmas and holiday seasons. Well, to me, it's Jesus's birthday. So I treat it as a religious holiday because that's what it is. And, my mother stopped getting us Christmas gifts, Terry, at 12. She says it is Jesus's birthday. It's Jesus's birthday. So we're celebrating the birth of Jesus the Christ. So, so we dinner became the thing for us, and our father had a service at the prison, a religious service at the prison, and that's what we did, and that became our fun time for Christmas. Dad would go around and say, "Do you want a little something?" We were like, "No, look, we've had so much fun, and please, we we're just grateful to be together for the holiday. So there you have it. So what about this economic boycott? Let me start with you, Attorney Terry O'Neill. What did you think about it? I mean, like I said, when I hear boycott, when I say boycott or protest, you you respond almost immediately. You're like, oh, really? Talk to me, Terry.
Yeah, I did participate in the boycott. Although I actually there's really two sort of boycotts going on right now.
Mm.
In early January, African American activists and some African American ministers and pastors began calling on African Americans to stop shopping at companies who, early in January, before Trump, actually took office, they began to pull back on their DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies inside those corporations. Target was a notable example of that. Notable because previously, ever since the murder of George Floyd in 2020, Target had really expanded its DEI. They had made a very public push to bring in small Black-owned businesses as vendors to sell their products in Target stores. And here they are now that Trump is elected, pulling back on DEI. So a lot of African American activists had said, "Hey, we're not going to spend our consumer dollars at a store that stabs us in the back like that." So that's going on in the background. And by the way, that starts in early January, and by the end of February, Target's foot traffic was reported to be down 18% of what it had been looking quarterly by quarterly. So, and what that says to profits, we don't know yet. You don't have the data, but foot traffic being down that much is got to have an impact. So that's going on. And then kind of out of nowhere, this baby boomer white guy named Jim Schwartz puts it out there on his social media. We ought to have a major boycott. Just don't buy anything on February 28th. Who's with me? Very reminiscent of the Women's March, isn't it? And so that comes out. I'm happy to stay home and not shop as a form of protest. I think we are facing, frankly, a fascist government. I think I have come around to the belief that this is the natural progression of capitalism, what we're seeing right now. And any kind of sand you can throw in the gears of this capitalism that is literally killing the earth and killing a lot of people, I'm happy to throw sand in the gears. But I will say this. Remember that the Women's March, as exciting as it was, as electric as it was, as huge as it was, what did it achieve long term? Where are we now after all of that excitement, electricity, and that protest? We are in a fascist regime. We are looking at drastic cuts to Medicaid, right? We are looking at Social Security Administration staff being cut by 50% and shutting down Social Security offices that help older people figure out their Social Security benefits. We're looking at really some drastic changes that are going to be harmful to most of us and extremely profitable to a small number of billionaires and corporations. So I'm not that much of a fan of someone who goes on social media and says, "Hey, we ought to protest. Let's go do this. Who's with me?" I just don't think that that's as useful. Now, if you're working through organizations, you're working through your union, if you're working to build a union, do you live in an apartment building? Create a tenants union in the building where you live. If you are actually looking at trying to understand this fascism and trying to defeat fascism, it has to be done in an organized way through democracy, through small d democracy, where people are actually talking to each other and agreeing on how to act. And that is a pain in the neck. I get that. You have to listen to other people. It's not as much fun as throwing something out on social media. The only way we're going to defeat fascism is by working together through organization. So that's my concern about this.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is from the report from CNN, flowing along, going along with what your thoughts are. And T.O., I want you and Linda to hear this. The headline was, "Today's economic blackout," which was on Friday, "began from an unlikely source, but it's tapped into Americans' anger." And in early February, John Schwartz, a self-described mindfulness and meditation facilitator, proposed a 24-hour nationwide economic blackout of major chains on the last day of the month. He urged people to forego spending at Amazon, Walmart, and all other major retailers and fast food companies for a day. He called on them to spend money only at small businesses and on essential needs. Schwartz said, quote, the system has been designed to exploit us. Uh, and he goes by the one called Jai on social media. And he said on February 28th, we are going to remind them who really holds the power. For one day, we turn it off. Um, Rosa Parks was really part of a greater movement, but people didn't really know that at the time, those who were not outside. And do you think that he did a bad thing? Or do you just wish that he had been coordinating with others? Do you think it would have been even more successful had he done that too?
Yeah, I don't think he did a bad thing. I mean, I think it's fine to call for a boycott. What I worry about is that people will see him as a leader of a movement,
Oh.
And the reality is he's not. He is
Mhm.
he has not tried to organize people. He is not connected to any kind of organized movement. And look, this is politics. This is democracy with a small d. And democracy with a small d, politics with a small p doesn't work with one person saying, okay, guys, come and follow me. It works with people working together, understanding their shared interests, the common ground that they stand on. It's people coming together to consensus on what their values are, on why it is that they're coming together, on the kind of world they actually want to build. And, you know, a person who says, I want a world where there's peace and justice and happiness, that's not, that's not organizing. Maybe in a Disney movie, it could count as that. But like I said, you need to do the hard work of relational, grassroots community organizing. Some of it is boring. A lot of it is annoying because, like I said, you have to listen to other people who are different from you. If you really want a powerful movement, it has to be like your dad's, Santita, which is multiracial and multicultural. And guess what? That's hard to do. It's hard for people to work together across cultural differences and across race.
It's hard to do it just, if it's going to be with Black people, if you're going to be with white people. Building consensus is very difficult.
That's right.
I mean, and if you then go beyond people's comfort and culture, it becomes even more difficult. But organizing your block is hard.
Is hard enough, but that's the only way really that you make progress, because the process of organizing your block pulls people into an understanding that when they work together, when they agree to compromise with one another, when they agree to hear one another and really begin to listen with an open mind to one another, that is the basis for building a world in which everyone can be respected for exactly who they are, and everyone has a chance, you know, to enjoy, to have a fulfilled, self-directed life in community with others. And I'm not seeing that in John Schwartz's efforts around the boycott.
Okay. Now I hear you. I hear you. T.O. Hardeman, I know you've got something to say about that because you organize.
Yes, for sure.
So,
Basically, I decided to sit the boycott out this time. I just want to be honest with everybody, and I tell you my rationale for doing so. My thing, I was more concerned about all the young people, African American, young Caucasian people, Asian, Latino, but mainly African American young people that work at a lot of those big box stores, in other words, right? So if the companies lose money, people may lose their jobs. And we never had a backup plan to make sure those young people were taken care of. Now, I took on this subject matter on my WVON show this morning, let me say that.
which
And I
is
got a call.
every Sunday, wait a minute, every
Yeah,
Sunday from 6 to 7
AM.
a.m.
Yes, early.
That's right. On WVON, you can go to WVON.com and stream it live. I just had to say that. Plug,
Well,
plug.
that's fine. But one of the guests called in and he reminded me, say, look, African American people would not be where we are today if it was not for the boycotting back, civil rights era, Black Power era, and all that kind of good stuff there. Even through the slave era, you know, people stood up and raised their voices. My concern is in the year 2025, why are we still as African American people? Why are we still in a position where we have to boycott? It's like going back in time to a degree. But I do understand both sides of the coin, because a lot of those big box stores, they have to do better, Santita. They should do better when it comes to African American people, because we're major consumers out here. So it shouldn't even be a second or third thought from some of their CEOs and leadership to say we have to do a little bit more work to bring African Americans in the fold on higher levels and provide opportunities for our consumers. That's the way it should be, because the consumer actually comes first. The person that's spending their money comes first. I frequently go to the Walmarts here on 115th in Chicago. 99% African American employees at that particular Walmarts. And I would hate to see some of them people lose their jobs back to that. And even in Target, because, you know, COVID-19 already has slowed down some of the businesses anyway. So, you know, we shut down Lakeshore Drive here in Chicago during the Laquan McDonald era, I would call it. We also shut down Michigan Avenue, and it took the stores on Michigan Avenue had never was able to bounce back from that shutdown. But as an end result, a lot of people lost their jobs. Macy's actually moved from downtown, and Macy's was the real anchor store at the water tower down there. If you go to the water tower now, it's like it's very, very, you don't have the customers, the consumers not coming out like they used to, right? A ghost town. There you go.
But you know, but Tio, don't you think
Yeah.
that was also COVID? Because we were watching a major shift in the American and the global economy.
Right.
We lost a lot of small businesses, but amazingly, Amazon and the big box stores, the big businesses got bigger. Small businesses went out of business.
No doubt. But see, this is the thing, too. I want to say this as an African-American man. I always support Black businesses. It's on my mind every day when I leave out the house. I try to find it. No one has to tell me to support small businesses and Black businesses. It's just ingrained in me, right? But I support it. When I see people working, once again, I support the people. My thing is Black, white, Caucasian, Asian, we all are human beings. That's the way we should look at it, right? So I support the process of people paying their bills, keeping their houses. You know, like right now, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, they're talking about firing over thousands of federal employees. You know, it's like, why would you step on the working class people? And you guys are almost trillionaires in your life. Give me a break. So we have to uplift the people. But I do understand why people want to boycott and protest at the same time. But I think we need to come up with some different solutions and have, you know, your father, Santita, I don't have it verbatim, but he has a layout. He has a pathway when you, first you try to call for a meeting, right? You call for a meeting.
Educate.
That's right.
Right.
No, go ahead, Santita. You go ahead on.
No, go on as you understand it. Yeah.
Right. So educate, call for a meeting with the CEOs, the people in power. If they decide not to be, then you demonstrate, okay? If that doesn't bring them to the table, then you escalate your demonstration, okay? And then you keep it going. Like you said, the Montgomery bus boycott lasted for a whole year. Sustained boycott and sustained protest will get the job done, because nobody wants you to continue to beat them down like that. So that'll make sure people come to the table. Now, once the people get to the table, that's where everything should be worked out for everybody, right? For everybody, not just individual gain, but for the people at large. And that's the reason I decided to sit it out this time, because I support all the rallies the majority of times, right? I support, because when I shut down Lakeshore Drive with Reverend Livingston, all praise due to God, people were criticizing us. No, you're not going to be successful. I don't care what you do. No, it's in the history books now. We were some of the guys that led to the resignation of Rahm Emanuel because of Laquan McDonald. And I made peace with Rahm Emanuel after the marches and rallies, because it's about restorative justice, reconciling eventually with people. That's just the way it happens in life. I don't hold nothing against anybody. My thing is, I'm just a person that wants to just allow people to be themselves. That doesn't mean they're right all the time. But the boycott, it's okay. It's all right. But I didn't see a lot of people. A lot of small businesses did receive support, but you still had a lot of people like Target. You had people in the Walmarts, because I drove around to see how it was going to work out, and people came out. That's those are my thoughts. In other words.
Well, no. I mean, that's why I'm asking, Terry.
Yeah.
and Tio and you, Attorney Linda Bernard.
Right.
I'm not asking. I'm not trying to bend you one way or the other. I want to
Oh, no, I
know
know.
what your thoughts are, because also,
Yeah.
when you have these boycotts, you really do need grassroots support,
Yes. There you
and
go.
you can feel it. You can feel the heat in the streets when it's there. And I was hearing it. Social media is a way to do it, but it's not the way to do it, because people have to be seen, touched, and felt. And I think that goes to what Terry is talking about, because you're constantly meeting and getting to know people and building up trust and agreeing, disagreeing, and then you become close to these people in this group, but then everybody, the leader has to reconcile everybody, because hey, I know we've got different points of view. She knows this because she's been the president of the National Organization of Women, and the sisters are tough to corral. And I give you a lot of credit, my sister.
But you also have to think about the collateral damage. A lot of
Mhm.
times when people organize these types of boycotts, let's always think about what could happen to the working class people.
But
We
you know
cannot
what?
get
They
away
said
from.
that when we were boycotting Coke because of their
Yeah.
affiliation with the apartheid regime.
Okay.
We heard about that too. And we really heard about that from people who were on the African continent, Tio
Yes.
Hart, Attorney O'Neill, and Attorney Bernard, because the largest employer on the African continent is Coca-Cola.
That's right.
But we said, wait a minute, we in America have an opportunity to strike a blow at apartheid.
Mm.
And we've been pushing and pushing and pushing. And finally, Reverend Jesse Jackson made that central to his presidential campaign.
Mhm.
So it was the first time that it was discussed on a presidential level. So
Okay.
it's no accident that in December of '84, after Reverend had run, we started getting arrested at the embassy, as you remember, Terry, in London.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because the campaign had elevated the Palestinian issue. It had elevated getting women empowered. So you had the National Political Congress of Black women. You had a white woman on the ticket. That was the advocacy of the Jackson campaign.
Absolutely.
You even had Black people rising in the ranks, and it's certainly visibility in the Republican Party. But Reverend had been organizing by that time, oh my gosh, almost 25 years.
Right.
So, and that which goes to Terry O'Neill's point, because one of the people he organized was Terry O'Neill and Attorney Linda Bernard, who I used to meet at all of our conventions. Wherever they were, in some little teeny weeny town, she'd be there coming in. But reconciling people is tough.
Mhm.
And which goes to Tio's point. He's like, you didn't see, if you don't get Tio to buy in, you got a problem. I mean, no, because that's important. I
That's
said,
key.
I
Yeah.
said,
That's right.
because you gotta hear his point of view, and he's going to say, no, let me tell you why I don't agree with this. And you have to put that in the pot, in the soup, if you will. And so you can say, oh, okay, no, now I put this in the soup. Now I need some more salt in here.
There you
There
go.
you go.
I need some more vegetables. Wait, where's the celery? Because now that I put this in, the chemistry has changed. Attorney Linda Bernard, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have several thoughts of Santita.
Okay,
Number one,
everybody, batten down the hatches. I don't know what Linda Bernard say.
num-
I'm not to interview her,
Yeah,
so I don't know what she's gonna say, but she's my girl and I love her.
I love
that's
you
right.
too. I love everyone on the call, on the
Oh,
broadcast. But on the
Lord.
real side, I respect Mr. Schwartz Terry, and I admire what he did. He's not a politician. He's an ordinary person that simply posted his thoughts about something, and now he's got what, 800,000 people ready to follow him. He has created what he calls the People's Union. He has never run for any office, never been engaged or anything else. But he had something to say, and other people identified with it. And that's why, frankly, I don't think you have to go back to the grassroots level. Media has changed that. Your
Okay.
fans can be global. You don't have to sit down across from somebody, have a conversation. I got to go to the Black community or the Italian community, whatever it is. You can just do it now, and it's done, and you make that impact. He it's really interesting. I was reading what he said. You talked about T.O. stepping on working class people through the loss of jobs, but as a businessman, you already know the number one item in any budget is what? Personnel.
Yes, indeed.
80% of all your costs relate to personnel. So if you want to make your business profitable, what do? You eliminate personnel. That doesn't mean that job is gone for them, but there may be another one opening up someplace else. But no
Yeah,
business is going to operate in the red and have a full staff. Just that simple.
yeah, but the
And I'm
boycott can put them in the red.
yeah, and on fortunately, Santita, I'm not proud of this. I mean, I've been a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. The Democrats created this problem. Number one, by kicking the can down the road, acting like they could just keep on printing money and keep on doing this. So now we're spending what, 2 trillion more than we bring in as a country. That's bankruptcy in any equation, and padding it more and more and more with more and more people, when we know it doesn't exist. We know that the revenue for this expansion doesn't exist. I mean, the Dems have self imploded, starting with all of the DEI. You know, I say all the time, T.O., when it was just when, all of white America had accepted the fact that diversity, equity, and inclusion was black folks, women, and Hispanics, and Asians over a little bit, but Asians aren't really discriminated against. I mean, they're on a whole nother level. They have
Yes,
their own
Well,
countries, their own
well,
economies, their own everything. But
well, yeah.
that's what America was. That's what diversity, equity, inclusion. And then what happens? We have these people that come out and say, "Oh, like in the one ad you talk about boycotts not being effective." The boycott against Budweiser lost them almost $1 billion when they put that person on the Budweiser can that had his penis removed, his testicles removed, fake breasts put on. And this is the representative of America. And Kid Rock from Detroit went out with an AK-47 and shot up about 100 cases of it. And the next day, they lost $5 million in one day.
wow.
This is not what we view. This is not what America bought into when it came to diversity. It didn't buy into boys and girls sports. It didn't go into buy into drag queen, whatever you call them, whatever little kids in a thing. They pushed the can too far, and as a result, I mean, they have have the potential to wipe out the progress that blacks made, whites made, white women made, and women, and also other
Well,
minority groups. This is really more messed up than we could ever
well,
contemplate.
well, let me say this. I think we've got to be very careful because certainly everybody has their opinion about the trans community. I
It has
understand.
nothing to do with
No, 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 no,
they shouldn't be part of
no,
this. Not diversity, equity, and inclusion.
but Attorney Bernard, let me say this.
Okay.
And Solomon likes your perspective, and I appreciate it. But even as we offer our perspectives, let's just be very careful about how we refer to people because a lot of people are feeling some kind of way about that. And I really try to be very sensitive to that. And I know you, and I know you to be a very sensitive, very kind person. And so we just have to be very, very careful. I was at an event at Fox News when I first got there, and it was a women's event. The women of Fox, we were getting together and exchanging. It was a couple hundred of us on, one of the sound stages. Terry was nobody. The lights were on, but they were not recording. At least that's what they told us. And one of our colleagues, an executive there, they asked her, like, what is your greatest accomplishment? And they asked everybody that. And the women who were on the stage, well, I've done this, I've done that. She said, I was, I, my daughter came to me and told me she was trans.
Fine.
And I felt that I had succeeded as a mother because she felt comfortable enough to come to me and tell me that. and she rejected hurting herself. And I appreciated that because, I said, well, people can feel some kind of way about this, but this humanizes the story for everybody. And so I'm just saying, I just want us to be very careful. That's all. That's all.
No one is more in favor of, if you will, of the gay community than I am, and I proved it.
But
I'm the only
isn't
person in the state of Michigan to get a grant for an AIDS law center.
Yeah, but this isn't
I
wasn't speaking of. But wait a minute,
to people who are HIV positive and gay.
I hear you, but wait a minute. I wasn't speaking about the gay community. I was specifically speaking about the trans community. Just specifically.
That's a different subject, but you can't force them down America's or any country.
Oh no, but you know what? And I'm in agreement with you there. I am. I'm just saying that even as we have that discussion, I just want to be very sensitive to people because this is a very real issue for a lot of people. And when they hear this broadcast, I want us to be sensitive to that. That's all. That's all I'm saying. But your point has been made that when was it Budweiser?
Yes.
When they put a trans woman, a trans person,
not a woman,
as well,
who's a woman?
A trans woman. That's how she refers to herself, and I hear you. When they made her really, I guess when they made her, I guess their model spokesperson.
No,
it was
the president said that she was the woman of the year.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what a woman is. He doesn't know what he said. She was woman of the year for 2023. And that was horrific. That would be like me painting Biden in blackface and saying he's black man of the year. Wrong. And they created this.
Okay. Let's get back to the point at hand, because I certainly want to have a discussion about the trans issue. And I'm going to bring, I'd love to have you, Terry, and Tio, and others on. I'd certainly want a psychiatrist, psychologist on. I want some people on who can help us to really flesh this out. But I hear you. I mean, because there are many, 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 many questions that I have. And I want us to have some real discussions about that. But your point in talking about that, you said, Kenneth says there's no observable difference between a straight, gay, or transgender brain. Okay. Well, you know what? I think I want to bring some people on so we can talk about it.
Yeah, we should.
Talk about it. We should do that. But I certainly am not excluding, and I'm not denigrating or diminishing Attorney Bernard's perspective, because it's a very real perspective that she has, and that a lot of people have, and I respect that. I just want us to just be very careful to refer to people in a way that's very sensitive. That's my only point.
Diversity was great until that. We were all on the same page. Women were making all kinds of progress. Black folks were being pushed in corporate America. We were doing it. And then you introduce this ideal or this ideological perspective that is against nature.
But let me ask you this,
and against every religion in the world.
But Linda, that's not Blackout Friday. Let's get back to Blackout Friday.
I didn't say being gay.
No. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying Blackout Friday and whether it works and whether it should be more than 24 hours. We're going to have that discussion, and we will have that discussion about the trans community on another day. Okay, deal?
A deal, but DEI got deep six because of it.
Okay.
We're doing just fine.
Well, let me ask you this, Terry. Do you think that DEI was deep by the trans community? She might disagree with you.
That's what happened.
May agree. That's your opinion. Okay.
Boys
Terry.
and girls sports, all that crap.
So actually, I really do disagree, simply because John Roberts, who is the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, as we know, has spent his entire career trying to undo the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Now, we know that the Voting Rights Act was intended to allow Black people to vote. right? That was the whole point of it. Justice Roberts has spent his entire career since the time he graduated from law school and became a law clerk to then Chief Justice Rehnquist, who was also deeply opposed to allowing Black and brown people to vote. Rehnquist down in Arizona literally was one of the people intimidating mostly Mexican Americans who were trying to vote that years and years ago, right in the 70s, I think.
I remember.
Okay, so what we have had in this country is a growing is a number of people growing in mass and in power and in money that have been doing absolutely everything they can to bring us back to segregated workforce, the segregated workplaces where Black people are not permitted to rise in the ranks, either of corporate America or the militaries. We've just seen that all the Black leaders in the military are now being purged. Women leaders in the military are also being purged. But this has been going on since long before transgender people began asserting that they have civil rights as well, long before. So no, I don't think that transgender community actually is what sparked the backlash against DEI. I think it is money and power that has been pushing for a backlash against DEI for many years. Remember, it was in the early 2000s that some of these men, mostly white men, started attacking affirmative action. DEI exists only because affirmative action was destroyed in the courts by people claiming that it was reverse discrimination against white people to actually care about whether you had, a diverse workforce, whether you had, all white people, did you have some Black people and some women and some, and all that. That DEI came along as sort of when the Supreme Court basically declared affirmative action unconstitutional. That's when DEI, activists, progressive activists started advocating for DEI programs, which would not involve quotas or that sort of thing, but would involve trying to build multicultural, multiracial workplaces. True. So transgender people, and let's remember that transgender people have the highest risk of being murdered in the street today in the United States because they are so hated. So I think that we need to really remember who it is that's pushing against civil rights in the workplace and non-discrimination in the workplace. It's rich white people that are pushing against this, not transgender people.
Well, I just want to
most
add,
Americans are pushing against it because they don't believe in it either.
Well, Tio?
Yeah, I just want to add to it. See what happens. There would be no organizing movements in the United States if it were not for African American people. Correct. With everything we had to go through. So I'll fast track to year 2025. We're talking about cultures of people here, okay? Trans people, and I'm just going to say this in a universal way, they're not a culture. So they shouldn't be put in a situation where they get some preference because of all the fighting a lot of us have been doing, or compared to the struggle of Black folks in America. That's my main issue with it. You can be whatever you want to be. When I was growing up, I took up for a gay guy. His name was Little Stevie. He grew up in our neighborhood. He seemed like he had some of those, he was kind of gay at, growing up, right? Not taking nothing from the young man, but people tried to bully him. We took up for him. So, I don't know, I need some more water. I'm good, though.
No, it's okay.
No, listen to me good.
So you're saying...
I took up for Little Stevie, right? We didn't let nobody mess with him. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to talk about it on here. I stood real tall for that young guy. Real tall for him, because every day somebody's trying to mess with him.
I do too, all the time.
Well, I will say this, Terry.
Every day.
The highest wage earning couple in the United States is the gay male white couple.
Yes, indeed.
And you can't tell that they are gay typically until they tell you. And I remember years ago, oh my gosh, 40 plus years ago, when I was a little girl, reading Jet magazine. And Richard Pryor appeared at an event at the Hollywood Bowl. Mm-hmm. And he was supporting the gay community. And he had made some joke that, because, he was really, as we all recall, because we had the blessing of growing up with Richard Pryor, when you could actually see him on network TV to see this
Oh,
genius.
yeah.
And he really was a great critic of the United States, and he really helped you to his social analysis, his racial analysis, when you really peeled away, was really quite profound. In the way that Lenny Bruce, in the way that if you really listen to George Carlin, if you really listen to Bill Cosby, if you really listen to some people, they have some amazing critiques, and they can be overt, they can be covert, but they have amazing critiques of our society and world. And he had made one of these observations, and the crowd started to boo him,
Mm.
and they were calling him names. And he stopped and he said, "Wait a minute, I'm in Hollywood. Okay, and I'm here in solidarity with you, but I want you to know I think you all some of the most racist people," and he used salty language I've ever known. And you all can kiss my straight black bone. And he left the stage. Now, of course, this was reported in Jet because we had Jet, and Jet would let us know things that happened. And so there's, in the black community, when you start looking at civil rights, although I think the gay community rightly has benefited from our struggle.
That's my point.
But
That's
black people have always said, wait a minute now, racism is very different than on some levels than see, because I can't hide being black.
Mm.
I'm always going to be there walking in the door. White men have space. And so, and then my, I can't be black and white. Like some people can be bisexual. They can like men and women. Okay.
Mm.
I can't do that. So I think that we also have to open the door to that discussion, Terry and Tio and Linda,
Yes,
because
much
black
needed.
people have a lot of feelings about people who get into this struggle and why. But I will say this to you. I can only go back to my own growing up experience and my church experience. Um, we always knew Uncle so and so and Aunt so and so, that they were a little different. And this is when you're 5 and 6 and 7. There was this woman whose name I will not call, but she's a legend in the gospel world. And looking back, she always wore tailored men's suits, Terry and Linda and 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 Tio. And my father loved to hear her sing. She sang every Saturday for him, and it really revived her career. And everybody knew she was gay. And as I came into my teenage years, I knew that too. But that was not something my parents even talked about. She was just a great artist. And yeah, she was a dude for all intents and purposes. I mean, she wore these tailored suits. She
Yeah.
took that drag off that cigarette, and she was almost insulted if you referred to her using a feminine pronoun. Looking back, I kind of now I see I didn't know, but she was also appropriate with children because there were some things you just didn't discuss. You just kind of knew. You knew who she was. And I'm accustomed to knowing who people are. I remember Anita Bryant, Linda Bernard, and Tio Hardiman and Terry O'Neill came to my father when she started this, when she started on her crusade about homosexuals. And many people have known that my father, like black people, he's socially conservative, but he's always been very embracing of people. And he said, Anita, I hear you, but your stance would hurt. It's hurting so many people,
Mm.
so many people, and so many people. I would hurt so many people I know and love, and I urge you to reconsider because you mean well, but what you're doing is hurting a lot of people, and I don't want to see you do that. So I just want us to all figure out how to refer to each other respectfully and keep it going. Robert says a lot of so-called sissies trans are born that way, which my mom explained to us as young kids, and not to make fun of them. Uh, they were around in those days in certain parts of the west side of Chicago. It wasn't really that big a deal. It's weird how people are tripping um, when they've always been around. I mean, people have been around, and if you left them alone, they left you alone. But I mean, I think we need to have a broader, deeper discussion about this.
Yeah.
And I want us to do that. And just all I ask is that we do it in a way that, you know, that respects where people are, because people are in a whole lot of spaces and places. But that does not, now, Linda, let us get back to the economic boycott.
Oh yeah.
As
That's
Wanda
right.
said from North Carolina, focus, focus, people, focus.
That's
Do
correct.
you think that this do you think that this boycott, that this 24-hour blackout, Terry, in your, because you've had many years of organizing all across the country in all the spaces, and you've also gone the extra mile of being intersectional. I mean, you have been very honest about the alienation between black women and white women in particular.
Mhm.
And so, a centerpiece of your presidency, multiple presidencies at now, was to bring black women in. Wait a minute, on black women's terms.
Yeah.
And that was not lost on me, which is why I came to support you, because I appreciated that. Tio, she wasn't asking me to change myself. She
Yeah.
wanted me to bring our issues to the table, because they're all of our issues.
I agree.
You know, and let me just say in a very public way, I want to thank you for coming to court the day that my brother Jesse was sentenced. It meant so much to turn around. Oh, you know, in your painful moment, in your most painful moment, you know, the courtroom was packed, and we saw these two little white ladies who were about 2 feet high. You know, you're 5 feet tall like my mother,
Me
and
and Ellie Steele, right?
and your smell. I remember that, and you were walking through. You were walking through, and they came in, Linda and Tio, because they said, you know, we wanted to stand with your family today. We didn't know if we'd get close to you, but we wanted you to feel us here.
Mhm.
And with all of my heart, I want to thank you publicly. Um, Thank you for that, because that
Yeah.
meant so much to us, that you never know what that meant in that moment. So with
Yeah.
all of my heart, I love you and I thank you and Miss Smeel for that, because that meant a lot on that day.
No, you
In
know,
that moment. Thank you for that. Thank
and
you.
I'm really glad to do that. And one of the things that Ellie and I had talked about was that, you know, the press is going to go there and have a field day, and if we could, and we did, you know, a couple of reporters, well, what are you doing here? And we said, you know what, we're here for the family. This is a really hard day, and we're here for the family, and to be respectful and to show our care and appreciation for the family, and that's all we're going to say. So I was hopeful that, you know, it blunt some of the circus atmosphere that some people were trying to gin up around
They,
that.
they were trying to, and the people and my Fox family did the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
because Roger Ailes and Mr. Murdoch sent their person to stand with us that day, and she
Mm.
in front of the press for us. I hadn't even expected her to do that. She said no, and she invoked their name. She said they sent me here,
Mm. That's nice. Yeah.
so just enough. And so, you know, you never know, Linda and Tio and Terry, where your help is going to come from. And I just want to thank you in a very special way, as you know, as we have a few minutes left here. But
Yeah.
just, you know, I know for your portion, demonstration and social change is something that you live out every single day.
Mhm. Yeah, and to get back to your the question you just asked just now, about the effectiveness, right, of a boycott. I think a boycott can be effective if it is part of an overall strategy
Mhm.
for making the change we need to make. You know, and look at, as long as huge portions of specific communities are not permitted to vote, right? I live in Tennessee. You've got 5 point something million citizens of the United States living in Tennessee who are over 18 years old, therefore they should be eligible to vote. But over 2 million people in Tennessee either are not registered, that's about a million or 970,000, or they are registered, but they find it so difficult to overcome the barriers to voting that they don't vote. Now, who do you think those are very disproportionately Black and brown citizens of the United States that aren't able to participate in our democracy? Now, if we want to have a democracy where everybody actually gets to participate, boycotts can be one piece of a much larger strategy of getting there. We need to understand who are the people that are trying to kill democracy. We're really happy not to have certain type of people voting, right? And those would be people who are benefiting from us not being able to vote, right? And a lot of them are CEOs of giant corporations. There's no doubt about it. A lot of them are tech moguls from Silicon Valley. That's not the whole universe of people who oppose actual democracy. But so if you understand what you're up against, yes, you can target, no pun intended, a certain corporation for an economic boycott, right, to try to make a point. But that can't just be all you're doing. And you cannot be doing this off the top of your head. You can't be doing it just because it has to be thought through. And it should be thought through with the participation of the very people who are being excluded from democracy. And all due respect to Mr. Schwartz, there's no indication that he reached out at all to the communities that are being specifically marginalized and specifically targeted for harsh treatment in this new fascist regime that we're facing. It doesn't look like he reached out to anybody. If you're not going to, it's there's that phrase, nothing about us without us. Well, Mr. Schwartz went right ahead and presumes to speak for communities that he apparently is not in community with. So that's an issue.
Linda, your thoughts?
Yes. Well, not only that, one, I think this boycott idea is going to be very effective because guess what? It can be communicated instantly to millions of people. Secondly, people are fed up. I keep saying this. I mean, the Democrats went too far. You can push the envelope too far. And now the backlash is humongous. And with respect to companies,
and let me just say, and this is what you're hearing and feeling from people. You're in conversation with people.
But it's obvious. Okay. I mean, I said it was 500 million, but they lost 1.4 billion as a result of that ad. It's in the materials that you were kind enough to share with me. Mm-hmm. Target the same way. I remember almost 2 years ago when I went into Target and they had this advertisement about how you could buy, the onesies that kids wear.
Well,
and they could tuck away their penis. I'm like, well, I stopped shopping at Target because of that. I thought it was outrageous that they would suggest that a baby, an infant, a 6-month-old, 9-month-year-old, be a chain quote, identify as a different gender, and they have a tuck in the doggone onesies. Who does this? I mean, It was just insanity. And it has continued to be in insanity.
So did other people?
I'm sorry?
Because I only have a few minutes left here. I have couple of minutes.
Okay, it's insanity.
Did other people feel similarly, do you think? And did they begin to target, if you will, no pun?
I couldn't understand. I'm sorry.
Did other people feel the same way that you did and stop shopping at Target?
Yes, they did. There was a reduction, and that's why they're the first company now to come out and say, "Oh, we're not doing DEI and this, that, and the other." They are the biggest retailer to have been affected by their quote forward-thinking initiatives. I mean, it's all in the material that you even sent me. I mean, it's terrible, but it is what it is. People are not crazy. I mean, as my mama used to say all the time, "You're not a wise man, and everybody else a damn fool." When people react as viscerally as they have to this quote, the new DEI, the whole transgender this is a civil right, this is that. It's a reason for that.
But what about race, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I said we were okay. We were okay with black folks, white folks, white women, and Hispanics. And then you got to go change it.
But Linda, it seems to me that they specifically, at least in terms of their language, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a black straight guy. And it appears that he was pushed out because he's a black guy. And he's someone who's highly qualified to be the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Intelligent people know that diversity is important to business, and
Yeah,
it's helpful to have you walk in the room.
I
And
got
black
no intelligent, and you know what? And it has helped the bottom line. But the fact is, now this administration has cast it out, and guess what? It is applicable to private companies, and now they are looking at the employment roles of private companies. And if you look like you have used DEI guidelines, these companies will be penalized.
Well, if they do that, then they will lose business, because everybody who's intelligent, if you don't believe it, just look at Trump's cabinet. He's got about 5 or 6 white women that are in extraordinarily prominent roles. You cannot ignore.
Yeah, I mean,
diversity.
he has a Secretary of Education who's anti-education, who has no qualifications to be there. I mean, really? Come on, Linda.
Well, I don't know about her or her. I'm talking about the woman who's the Attorney General.
Yes,
his press secretary is outstanding.
Mrs. McMahon. Okay, you know, really,
Sorry?
you know, from the wrestling family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
I mean,
all I can say is that all these Harvard people haven't done their job either. That's why we're in the situation we're in.
What she does want to do is shut down public education. That is what she has stated that.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
What he said is he wants to transfer the money.
No. She said,
and I'm not sure that's not a bad idea.
No. She said she wants to end public education. These folks don't want public education. Well, see that you had a black child out of Detroit who sued the Detroit public school because he found out, even though he was like salutatorian of his class, that when he got to college in Florida, he found out he was illiterate. I saw this. Wait a minute.
If you're 40th in the nation, how can you argue to keep it?
Listen. What's your argument? Listen, there's this Hispanic child who's suing her school district because of the same thing. I'm saying I'm a product of public schools. Please, I was a merit scholar and got accepted at the top universities in the world. Public education can work when they intend for it to work. When these people, that's why my brother, when he was in Congress, he came up with an amendment, equal access to equal high quality education, because that is not what these people want our children to have. Now, that being public education, we cannot take for granted that it will exist. And we cannot take for granted that everybody wants all children educated, because they do not. But that's another conversation for another day. Tio, I need to give you the final word, because you know I got like a minute before you.
I already know. I'll make it quick. I did run across some information that these boycotts may be more long term. Now, I've seen some dates out there somewhere on somebody's social media post where it might be a more sustained boycott and moving forward all the way into June of this year. So just be on standby for that. And I'll say this in close. The reality when it comes down to little kids from the age of 5 all the way to teenagers or 18 years old, the only thing that they need to be taught about sex is if somebody touches you, you report them. That's what they need to be taught. If they touch you inappropriately, let somebody know immediately. Okay, that's just where I look at. That's a whole other discussion. But anyway, with DEI, the thing is, the businesses could really, really end up being impacted in a very adverse way if this becomes a continued boycott mission. I'm talking about for the next, like you say, the bus boycotts. This could possibly last a year until these companies are forced to make the necessary changes with DEI, okay? And respect the process.
It's going to take a sustained boycott, which is, I think Terry's point about building consensus, because you have to have the buy-in from a whole lot of people.
That's it.
Do that. So everybody, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. These conversations always get to be so exciting. I love you, Linda. I love you, Terry. I love you, Tio. I love you all.
We're good.
AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless you.